Before the panel discussion, there is one more technology presentation we'll be witnessing, and that will be from the country manager of Cloudera, Mr. Vivek Ratna. So I invite Mr. Vivek Ratna to please join us on stage. A round of
Good afternoon. Apache Hadoop meets cybersecurity. One word you are very familiar with, which is cybersecurity. How about Apache Hadoop? How many of you are not aware about Apache Hadoop? I'm talking about not because I'm expecting very few hands to come up. Anyone in this room who is not aware about Apache Hadoop? Awesome. So everyone is aware about Apache Hadoop. So which makes my next slide to be completely irrelevant. Because I was expecting at least one hand to go up and say that, okay, I would love to know what is Apache Hadoop. But this is just a summary about what Apache Hadoop can do. And to summarize, Apache Hadoop, it can help you store huge volume of data. It can help you store huge volume of data coming from different sources. And you don't have to bother about what is the kind of the data. Structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. You don't have to bother about that. And that is what the beauty of this yellow elephant. Right? Okay, so this in a very single slider. I'm not getting to what is Apache Hadoop, but what value. That is what all of us are interested in, right? Now, that leads us to the next question. How many of you have heard about this company called Cloudera? Let's be very honest. Have you heard about Cloudera? You have heard about. The rest haven't heard about Cloudera, right? You have heard about Cloudera. Awesome. So there are few. So Cloudera is a Hadoop distribution company. Okay. So this for you to understand very easily, I always give this example of something which has already happened of a similar nature, which is in the OS thing. There is this whole Linux, which is open source, and there is this great company called Red Hat, which is a open Linux distribution company. You just map it with big data, with Hadoop, and you have got the exact analogy. You have Apache Hadoop, which is open source, and you have Cloudera, which is the biggest Hadoop distribution company in the world. It has been 8 years, so I'm just keeping one slide on Cloudera, or probably rather a couple of slides on Cloudera, just to give the background why we are here. All of you are bankers. You must be wondering a bit, what is Cloudera doing out here? What is Apache Hadoop doing? So I'm just setting the background on that, right? So Apache Hadoop, it has been 10 years. For Cloudera, it has been 8 years. The founder of Apache Hadoop, Doug Katik, he is one of our chief resources within Cloudera. His footprint is always there within Cloudera. We are growing very fast. We are very well funded. Intel happens to be one of our very strategic partners. And we have got presences more than 50 countries. India happens to be one of the fastest growing country for Cloudera, especially India and this whole region, ASEAN and India. And the reason being the enormous population that we have. And till a few years back, we used to deride at this word called population explosion. But now, actually, if you look at it, there are some advantages that is coming out of this whole thing in terms of the level of middle class that has got generated out of this population explosion, which essentially means so much of data is getting produced, which essentially means there is so much of technology that can come into the picture in deriving value of that. And that is precisely why in this whole atlas of big data, India is playing a very dominant role. We have to, as mentioned earlier, we have taken the leadership position. This is from one of the third-party reports, Ovum consultant reports. We are right up there, okay, whether in terms of vision or in terms of product offerings, in terms of coverage, in terms of solutions, we are right up there, right? So coming back to my first slide about, okay, fine, Apache Hadoop, you can store huge volume of data, you can ingest huge volume of data from different sources, not bothering about what kind of data. What does it mean for you? What it means for you is that you can have a single platform having a huge volume of data, and then you can start creating new possibilities either on the operational efficiency side or creating new business values. To just touch very briefly on the operational efficiency side, you have got very, very expensive data warehousing system. For example, probably one way of looking at it, and we are in discussions with many of the banks across the globe and including in India, and many have already gone ahead on that path, where they have offloaded a bulk of their data from expensive system onto Cloudera platform in order to not only save cost, but also to do many things which they were doing earlier in hours into minutes and seconds. So that is the value in terms of the operational efficiency. Now, once the data is there in one single platform, it can create huge possibilities. And that is what we call it is in the possibilities of verticals. Okay, either it is in terms of churn analysis for a bank or a telco, or in terms of getting a customer 360 view for a bank or a telco or a retail, whatever you can call. But one of the biggest things that we have seen, which has come out of as one of the predominantly vertical coming out of this whole data on one single platform, that is cybersecurity. And the reason being, if you look at the traditional SIM tools, most of the SIM tools, they were designed in the 90s. And they were designed with the objective of storing a certain volume of data, probably weeks or months, predominantly because the compute power had a certain limitation within the application, as well as the cost of storing the data was pretty high. And most of the time, the data that was getting stored was limited to structured data. But just imagine, do you think a subset of data is able to give you the complete picture of vulnerability within your organization? Not necessarily. There can be many other data which can give you a much more holistic picture of the security vulnerability within the organization. And once the data is there, then of course, and most of the times what has been happening, what our CEO, so our CEO was earlier a CEO of ArcSight. He took ArcSight from a privately held company to a publicly held company, went for the IPO, and then massively successful ArcSight as an organization. Then he joined the Cloudera. So he has got a huge background on this whole cybersecurity front. Okay. And what he calls, it's a race between the good guys and the bad guys. It's a race between who is able to outsmart the others. And most of the times, what we have seen, it's the bad guys who outsmart the good guys. And that is why you would have seen in the earlier slides about, I was surprised when I saw that slide from Ripu, the earlier session, in the earlier presentation. 1 million attacks a day? That's crazy. 1 million attacks a day, that is sheer crazy. And it means that the bad guys have been just poking on the edges to see where are the leakages where I can intrude into. And that is where each breach can cause a million plus on an average. Those figures are so scary as a figure, right? And this is primarily because the good guys like us, the good guys who are sitting in this room, will react to what has happened in the past. Most of the SIM products, they are rule-based. Okay, this has happened, so there is a likelihood that if this is not happening, it's an anomaly, so I should fix it. But the bad guys they are very, very innovative. They can keep on coming with new ideas, and that is why, again, taking a figure from the earlier slide, 47% growth into the breach and attacks. Those are crazy numbers. Okay. And seeing this, and this is the value that Apache Hadoop as a platform can bring in. Because we can do so much. We need not get limited to only a small volume of data. More the data, more patterns we can see, more anomaly we can detect. And if the tools are capable, we need not react. I mean, again, taking the earlier number, 6 minutes is what a fraudster needs to cause damage. Only 6 minutes. If we are in a position to react on a real-time basis, there can be so much of saving which can happen. So we can plug so much of vulnerability. And this is exactly what Apache Hadoop, the tools which are there in Apache Hadoop does. It is not only based on correlation, that if this happens, this happens, this happens, so but if this is not happening, there is an anomaly, so probably there is a breach. No. With Apache Hadoop, there are tools which will help you get into machine learning. The machine itself will start detecting what can be the anomaly on a real-time basis. And that is where the race between the good guys and the bad guys becomes much closer than what it has been till now. And the good part is that many of the SIM companies, they have started embracing it. Whether it is Splunk or ArcSight or Radar, these guys who have been traditionally doing what they have been doing till now in terms of a small amount of data, structured data, correlation-based, rule-based, reaction-based, most of the time, now they are basing their platform on Apache Hadoop. So that's a great thing to happen, which means that a lot of acceptance is happening not only from the user community, but even from the vendor community. So just to summarize in one slide about what has been happening till now against what can be the possibility with the tools that we have currently. What has been happening till now, it is that it is more about rule-based, correlation-based, limited data. But now what the possibilities is that instead of just getting into rule-based, correlation-based, limited data, you can get into user/entity behavior analytics, deep network analytics. And when I say deep network analytics, it need not be only logs. It can be network flows. It can be many other systems which can be coming in. Maybe not necessarily relevant for a bank, but many of the things can be relevant for the bank. In fact, just to give you a background why we are so serious on the cyber security, when we started our company in 2008, the initial customers, you guess what, were banks and governments. And these two verticals are most paranoid about security, Even if they say that I am ready to compromise a little bit on performance, but I can't compromise on security. And that is what has led us to create this whole new paradigm shift, how a cybersecurity tech Gen 2.0 can happen. So we are working, Cloudera has become some sort of a focal point in this whole new next Gen 2.0 cybersecurity solutions. We are working with a lot of partners. In fact, just immediately after me, I will be requesting one of our partners, Securonix, who is mentioned in this slide, to come and make a presentation very briefly about what is it that they are doing in entity and user analytics behavior. And if you're wondering, oh my God, I've spent millions in ArcSight. Oh my God, I've spent millions in a traditional SIM. Does that mean I have to just rip and replace it? No, that's not. But the good part is that you can build on top of that. You can create a layer which will be based on Apache Hadoop, and it can seamlessly work with something like an ArcSight or any other SIM tools. That's the great part. So the existing data will continue going if you choose that way. So we'll continue going into your existing SIM. You can keep on adding new sources of data. That's the beauty of Apache Hadoop. It can grow horizontally. You want to add 6 data sources now? Go ahead and do that. If you want to add another 15 sources tomorrow, go ahead and do that. You can do that, right? And this whole combination of a traditional SIM sitting along with an Apache Hadoop, that's what gives you the complete holistic value that I just talked about in my earlier slide. This is one part of any cybersecurity thing unless someone actually peeps into it and all that. Most of the customers don't like their names to be revealed because it impacts the brand. And there have been customers with whom we have worked who had certain breaches and who have gone with our solution. One of them is, of course, one of the banks in US who have gone for this next gen cybersecurity solutions. I won't be getting into the details of that because we are not authorized to do that. But just to give you an example, things have started happening quite a lot on this front, where people are moving, are taking a step further on how they can further enhance their cybersecurity solutions. I can talk a bit more on this because we have got some permission to talk about this. So there is this organization, U.S. National Security, or one of the U.S. National Security Organization. Its mandate is to keep an eye on the different data that is getting generated across the region, and then see if there is an anomaly for any terrorist activity or any fraud or anything. They were there in one of the earlier systems. I won't name them. Just respecting the earlier system which is there. They were there in one of the earlier systems. Okay, but they were not too happy with the kind of real-time value that they wanted to have. They went ahead with this with Cloudera Data Hub. This is the product name that we have, Cloudera Data Hub, sitting on top with an application layer to provide the cyber security. And now, in this new environment, they are able to give real-time information to the other government entities about any vulnerability, not only in America but other countries as well. So this is a great value that this National Security Organization has created for the country, America, and of course for the world as such. I see a similar huge potential that we see in India, okay, and it is predominantly because the bad guys are there. The bad guys are there to take advantage of any leakages which is there. 1 million attacks, even if suppose 5 of them succeed, it can cause mayhem. It can really cause mayhem. Okay. So now I'll just request one of our partners, Securonics. They are one of our very, very key partners who completes this whole story about the entity/user behavioral analytics to detect anomalies on a real-time basis. And he will also love to go through a few of the use cases, which may be very, very interesting for all of us. Thank you. It was nice talking to you. Thank you.
My name is Ramakrishnamurthy. I'm the director for Asia Pacific at Securonics, and we are partnered with Cloudera. So Vivek talked about the power of Apache Hadoop, and our solution and software actually utilizes the power of Apache Hadoop and provides user and entity behavior analytics using machine learning techniques. So I'll talk a little bit about our company, the product itself, and walk you through some of the use cases on how we have been successful in detecting the underlying threats within an organization. So our Securonics was founded in 2008, and we are specialized in signature-less threat detection. So of course we support the signature-based threat detection as well, but signature-less is the key, using patented machine learning algorithms that we have developed in-house. And if you look up our website or follow us on LinkedIn, you can see there are several awards that we have received as well in the past couple of years for our technologies. We have been successful in all the verticals. Obviously, BFSI is a big one, but healthcare, patient data, privacies, defense, media companies, retails, everyone has this issue of insider threat and cybersecurity issues. And we have been successful in all those verticals as well. So 1/3 of the Fortune 500 financial organizations are already using Securonics today successfully. So today, since morning, we have seen a lot of statistics in terms of where we have cybersecurity issues. We talked a lot about breaches, how long it's taking to actually detect those threats. In fact, by the time we detect a threat, the actual breach had happened about 3 or 6 months back, right? And the speed at which we have to go and catch these threats is becoming the need of the hour. So one of the things I would like to talk about is the underlying technology, right? I mean, to be able to detect this threat from vast amounts of data, we need a big data solution or a platform underneath that. Hadoop, as we talked about, gives us that capability in terms of long-term storage, ability to run analytics over a large set of data, or even several years of data, be able to perform investigations and forensics on a large set of data as well. So the traditional, I know Vivek touched upon this as well from a technology standpoint, right? But the traditional monitoring methods are not working anymore. If you look at a standard SIM-based solution, it's very signature-based, right? I mean, and you're setting a static threshold for every single entity in the organization. For example, you want to look at, show me every data transfer that was over 1 GB. But really, that does not mean anything. Because every user in the organization and every device or entity in an organization is different. Their behavior is going to be different, right? And the amount of alerts that are coming out of these traditional monitoring tools and SIM technologies, there's not much you can do. I mean, how many people can you put in front of a monitor looking at all these alerts and trying to figure out which one is actually a real threat and which one is false positive? And also, everyone's actually looking at all these threats in silos. For example, you could see an alert coming out of proxy data log. You could see an alert coming out of a DLP log. You could see an alert coming out of, say, email logs. But individually looking at it, it may not mean anything. But if you collectively put all of that together, correlate it to either a user, which is an identity, or an entity like a device or an application within an organization, then it would make much more sense. And I'll talk about how we do that in the next slide. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard the term UEBA. Not many. Okay. So this term has been in the industry for about 8 to 10 years now. So Securonics actually came up with this terminology and this problem statement actually of insider threat back in 2008. The user and entity behavior analytics is all about putting all the contextual information, everything that a single user or a single entity, when I say entity, it could be a device, a sensor, it could be a laptop, it could be a server, or an application. So everything happening around that, if you're getting log data from different log sources, then how do you make that 360-degree view and try to find threats, everything happening around that single entity? I've been asked to wrap up, so I'll pick up some pace as well here. So Sniper is the product that Securonics has, which runs on the big data technology, which is Hadoop, which helps us analyze large sets of data over a very long period of time. We have even gone up to ingestion speeds about 1.5 to 2 million EPS, which is absolutely the need of the hour. I mean, if you're talking about net flow data, you're talking about so much of data coming in from email logs, proxy servers, firewalls. It's just very difficult or impossible to consume all those logs using the traditional monitoring methods and run analytics on it. So some of the analytics techniques that we have, I'd like to highlight. One is the behavior baselining or the behavior profiling. I mentioned that not every entity or a user is same in the organization. So you cannot set a static threshold or a static value around, when do you consider that as a breach or a violation? So what our technology does is it looks at the log data for our activity for a user or an entity over a long period of time, say even for a year or months, and then create a dynamic baseline for every single individual in the organization. If that individual is accessing 10 different applications, then every single individual would have 10 different behavior baselines, and it's dynamic in nature. And only when the threshold, when the user breaches the threshold, that is when we pick up that user and flag that user as an outlier. So there are several packaged applications that we have for each of the verticals, like the privileged account monitoring, for administrator monitoring, cyber threat analytics, cloud analytics, data security analytics, and access analytics as well. Some of the customer use cases, these are real threats that we identified. These are very proactive, some are reactive in nature as well. But the first one being identifying an anomalous behavior for a user who has downloaded high number of files compared to their normal behavior, and compared to their peers as well, right? So we compare individuals with other individuals within the organization and detect when there is anomalous behavior and when the data has been exfiltrated. Zero-day attacks as well. All right, I'll be wrapping up. Zero-day attacks, which are very hard to find. Putting all the thread chain together and trying to identify, when an email was received, like a phishing email, when the file was downloaded, when did the data exfiltration happen, or a process was identified on the user, like an initial process on a user's endpoint. So putting all these pieces together, revolving around an entity, is the sweet sauce behind finding these anomalies. There are a lot more, yeah, and what we'll do is I'm available at the Cloudera booth. If you are interested, have more questions to learn about how we use machine learning to detect anomalies in the organization, please feel free to come and talk to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I request you to please be on stage for a minute, and I also invite again Mr. A speaker from Cloudera,
Vivek Ratna.
Mr. Vivek. I invite you also to please come on stage for a minute. I request Mr. Karsi Tavadia, he is here. So please present a memento to I request you to present a memento to our eminent speakers from Cloudera. Mr. Karsi Tavadia is the CIO of Bombay Stock Exchange. Mr. Vivek Ratna, Country Manager of Cloudera, and Mr. Ramakrishna Murthy, Director APAC of Securonics, a partner of Cloudera. And now we are moving on to the panel discussion, which is on rise of cybercrime, managing the cybersecurity threats to the BFSI sector.